The night before the wedding, Joel got involved with my stepsister, who was supposed to be my maid of honor. My stepsister had just broken up with her ex-boyfriend and came to stay with me to cheer up. Joel saw them together. They instantly fell for each other. I still meticulously prepared for the wedding, invited the guests, and acted like I didn't know. On the wedding day, my stepsister wore the wedding dress I had prepared and confronted me. Joel stood beside her, gazing at me with deep affection. I've given you my youth and the rest of my life. So this time, I want to give the wedding to her. I silently clenched the diagnosis in my hand, hesitated for a moment, then gave them the wedding. No one knew that Joel was about to die. Chapter 1. When Joel and my stepsister Amelia came out of the hotel again, I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe that the man who loved me until the end in the short time we had in our previous life would fall for someone else. So, I got out of the car and appeared in front of them. The moment the man saw me, he stiffened and quickly stepped forward, pulling me into his arms. The weather is so cold. Why aren't you wearing more clothes? I stared at Joel for a long time. In his eyes, I could still see the deep love he had for me. But this man, who had his heart and mind filled with me, had been cornered by me at the hotel entrance 3 times. I steadied the bitterness in my heart and spoke calmly. Someone told me they saw you with a girl entering the hotel. I was worried, so I ran out. Joel chuckled softly, his nose brushing against my cheek. Laura, don't you know how much I love you? Don't doubt me like this. It hurts my heart. Amelia, standing to the side, flashed a hint of jealousy, then quickly replaced it with a sweet smile. Joel, I never knew you could be so clingy. I didn't expect that. Sister, don't worry. If Joel can have women behind your back, then there are no good men left in this world. Though she was speaking to me, Amelia's gaze never left Joel. The man's expression darkened, and his eyes narrowed. A clear warning. Seeing that I didn't ask further, Joel took the initiative to explain. Amelia is about to graduate and find a job. She asked me to teach her some interview techniques and processes. Can't she learn at home? Joel took off his coat and draped it over my shoulders, then placed my cold hand into his, rubbing it gently. You've been busy with the wedding preparations. I wanted you to get some rest, so I found a quiet place at the hotel. After a brief pause, Joel added, She's your sister. I have to care about her. But it seemed he had forgotten. Amelia wasn't my real sister. She was the stepsister who took away my father's love, took my room, and whom I despised. Chapter 2. I forced a smile, pretending to believe his explanation, and didn't say anything further. When getting in the car, Amelia, whether intentionally or not, opened the passenger side door before me. Before she could even sit down, Joel grabbed her and yanked her out. This seat will always be Lara's. Don't make me say it again. Amelia looked innocent, like a little white rabbit, with eyes that seemed to speak. She stood by the car door, crying like a fragile flower, and any man who saw her would be filled with pity. Joel was no exception. I saw the brief flicker of sympathy in his eyes. The pain in my heart grew numb. He had already been taken by her, and one seat no longer mattered. Let her sit in the front. I'll sit in the back. But Amelia just shot Joel a resentful glare, then ran to the back. Joel didn't respond, his expression unchanged as he let me sit in the front. He stepped on the gas, and the car drove off without hesitation. But ever since I got in the car, Joel hadn't said a single word to me, maybe even without realizing it himself. I looked out the window, my vision becoming blurry, the suffocating atmosphere making it hard to breathe. I felt like I couldn't be alone with him for another second. Stop ahead. I have plans to go shopping with a friend. Joel paused for a moment, but the coldness on his face softened considerably. He kindly reminded me to return home early, telling me to call him after shopping so he could pick me up. I nodded obediently, turning my back to head into the shopping mall. After Joel left, my leaden steps finally came to a halt. I turned around. For a long time, I trembled, covering my eyes with both hands. Tears streamed down through the gaps between my fingers, because I saw it. At the intersection ahead, a sleek black car suddenly turned around and sped back. He was still going to find her. Chapter 3. I didn't go home. I wandered aimlessly on my own. The chilling wind pierced through my clothes, making it hard to escape. Just like I had told Joel, I went shopping, watched a movie, and even ate hot pot alone on this cold winter day. But until 10 o'clock at night, Joel still hadn't contacted me. After wandering around for a while, I found myself, without realizing it, back at the entrance of that hotel. There was a couple at the door, arguing and tugging at each other. I took one glance and froze, because they were two people I knew all too well. Amelia was pulling on Joel's arm, trying to drag him back into the hotel. Joel seemed reluctant, but still took one step after another. Moving forward, I didn't know why I wanted to avoid them, but before my mind could fully process it, I was already frantically hiding behind a car, overhearing their conversation. Joel, if you're a man, you'll come back to the hotel with me. I don't want your empty apologies. Come on, you won't be this week, will you? Too scared? Joel's gaze deepened, and after staring at her for a few seconds, his throat moved as if he was about to speak, but he ultimately shook his head. Laura is waiting for me at home. I need to go back and be with her. But Amelia didn't give him a chance to speak. She suddenly stood on tiptoe, tilted her head back, and kissed him forcefully. Joel's big hand immediately went around her soft waist. Rough and urgent, they didn't care about anyone around them. I turned away, unable to watch any longer. I don't know how long it was before they finally pulled apart. I could still hear their ragged breaths. Can I come in with you now? Amelia's voice was full of seductive exhaustion. I didn't hear what Joel said, but suddenly, I received a text from Joel on my phone. Laura, did you get home? I have to leave for a business trip for a few days. I'm almost at the airport now, so I won't be able to pick you up. So he still remembered the promise he made to come pick me up. In the past, I would have carefully reminded him to take care of himself. But today, I wanted to see, would Joel, who had loved me in 2 lifetimes, choose to abandon me for someone he had just met? Amelia? I replied to him. If you don't come to pick me up this time, I won't go home. Chapter 4. In an instant, Joel released his hand from Amelia's waist and turned to walk towards the car. His steps were filled with urgency. Amelia grew anxious, blocking his path, her tear-filled eyes preventing him from leaving. All the lust in the man's eyes disappeared completely, and his face turned cold. He ordered, "Move aside. I need to go pick her up." Amelia tried to pull Joel's neck again with the same trick, but he coldly pushed her away. Amelia was not ready to give up. It was hard for her to get this close to a wealthy young man like Joel, and she wasn't going to let him go so easily. She clung tightly to his waist, pressing her whole body against him, her voice full of complaints. What's so great about Laura? She's neither beautiful nor as open-minded as I am. Aren't you tired of being with her after all these years? Joel, please don't marry her. Seeing that Joel remained silent, Amelia's courage grew, and she lowered her voice to test him. Actually, my mom already found a marriage partner for Laura. He's more than 10 years older than her, but he's a man who knows how to care. For an ordinary woman like Laura, he's more than enough. Why don't I ask my mom to introduce them to each other someday? Joel still didn't respond, and Amelia interpreted this silence as a sign that he didn't care much for me either. But only I knew that this was Joel's extreme anger. Men like him, born with silver spoons and raised in luxury, usually showed a gentlemanly and mild attitude to everyone. But once you pushed him to the point where he showed no expression, that meant you truly crossed his line. Sure enough, the next second, Joel viciously grabbed Amelia's chin. He scoffed, his face twisted with fury. I almost forgot. You, who share no blood with her, are truly disgusting. The only thing you have is your skills in bed. In my eyes, you're not even worth a single strand of her hair. If I hear another word from you, get out! Amelia thought she had become familiar with Joel, but she never expected him to suddenly turn cold. She was frightened, her neck shrinking as she repeatedly nodded, her eyes reddening. I watched the two of them, who had been entangled for more than 10 minutes after I sent Joel a message. Suddenly, I didn't want the answer anymore. Even if Joel did come to pick me up, I couldn't be sure that he was still the same Joel who loved me in the past life. So, I opened my phone and typed a message. I was just joking. I've already gone home. Have a good business trip. Chapter 5. The phone chimed, and Joel glanced down at it, his cold demeanor disappearing as he put it away. He briefly looked at Amelia's chin, which was bruised and marked from his grip, and softly asked, "Does it hurt?" Amelia's tears immediately began to fall, making her look especially pitiful in the cold wind. Joel stared at her, and after a long pause, slowly raised his hand to wipe away the tears on her face. He whispered a few soothing words, causing Amelia to smile through her tears. Then, in my calm gaze, Joel picked Amelia up in his arms, and the woman shyly buried her face in his chest, unwilling to show her face. This time, I didn't feel a stir of emotions upon seeing them together. At this point, I was so heartbroken that I couldn't even feel the pain. I was just confused about whether the Joel who, in his final moments, still whispered that he loved me, had truly changed his heart. In the previous life, we had been a couple but separated due to misunderstandings, never getting back together. Afterwards, I chose to follow the conventional path, marrying through an arranged marriage, having children, and living an ordinary life of simplicity and contentment. But Joel died in the year I got married. Many years later, I divorced my husband. A few days later, someone delivered a box full of love letters to me. They were all letters Joel had written to me in the last days of his life. He said that if I was happy, then I should burn everything and never let it appear in front of me again. The person who brought the letters said that in his final moments, Joel had only spoken my name. Each letter ended with the same sentence: "If there's a next life, Laura, will you wait for me? Wait for me to find you. And in the next life, let's never be apart again, okay?" I believed him, so I was reborn with the memories. And this time, I didn't let go of his hand before he did. We successfully passed through the point of separation from the previous life, and I thought our ending would be different. But he had forgotten the promise he once made to me, growing farther and farther away, the promises between us. Now, I am the only one who remembers. It really is exhausting. I wiped away the tears that had long dried in the wind, looking back at the two disappearing figures. Joel, I'm not sure how much longer I can wait for you. Chapter 6. Joel came back 3 days later, carrying a suitcase, looking weary from his travels. He really did look like someone who had been on a business trip. But that night, I had already asked Amelia. She also hadn't returned in those 3 days. "Why haven't you come back yet? If something happens to you, I won't know how to explain it to Dad." Amelia sent me a voice message, her voice shaky and fragmented, making it hard to hear clearly. My ex-boyfriend asked me to get back together, so I've been with him these past few days." I stared at that voice message for a long time, never having the courage to play it again. I couldn't imagine it. What would Joel, who was by her side, feel at that moment? Joel put down his suitcase, wrapped his arms tightly around me, and took a deep breath of my scent. He sighed in satisfaction. These 3 days felt like a lifetime. I almost wanted to fly to you the next second. "Laura, you're my healing medicine. As long as I see you, I don't feel tired at all." I let him hold me, but my gaze landed on the long yellow hair on his coat. I let out a self-mocking laugh in my mind. So, Joel wasn't any different from those other men out there. They were all the same, habitual liars. Amelia came in a few minutes later. When she saw us in each other's arms, she gave a cryptic smile. It was an obvious mockery aimed at me. I slowly pulled away from Joel, not responding to his usual warm smile. I didn't show any anger. I just calmly said, "I'm going to the hospital to pick up my test results. I'll be leaving now." Joel reached out to grab my hand but missed, a look of confusion on his face. As I brushed past Amelia, I smelled the same perfume on her as I had on Joel. A wave of nausea surged in me, and tears welled up in the corner of my eyes. Without looking back, I walked out. Joel noticed my strange behavior, staring at my back. There was a flicker of pain and regret in his eyes. But what good would more pain do after the fact? Chapter 7. I stared at the pre-marriage test results with Joel for a long time. It felt like everything was following the same trajectory as in the past life, and no one could change it. Although Joel and I had avoided the crisis that led to our breakup in the previous life, a new crack had now appeared. And now, this life's Joel, just like the previous one, was close to death. I looked up and saw Joel walking down from the car ahead. I quickly shoved the test results into the pocket of my clothes. As soon as he approached, he immediately took my hand, his eyes filled with concern. "What's wrong? Is something happening?" Looking at Joel in front of me, I couldn't find any trace of hatred for him. I shook my head, my tone subconsciously softening, and then I seriously asked him, "Joel, what's your biggest wish in this life?" Joel smiled and gently pinched the tip of my nose, spoiling me. "My biggest wish is to marry you." With a teasing smile, he tilted his head and asked, "Laura, you're not going to change your mind about marrying me, right?" I shook my head firmly. "I wouldn't change my mind. If this is your biggest wish, then I'll make sure to fulfill it." Chapter 8. On the day we were supposed to get our marriage certificate, Joel failed to show up. Once again, he used a business trip as an excuse and went off with Amelia. This time, he took her to a 3-night cruise party with his friends. It was one of my friends, who worked as a server on the cruise, who secretly told me Joel had once fought with his friends because of me. It was when we had just gotten together. Joel had taken me to one of their usual hangouts. He chatted with some familiar faces, and one of his friends pulled me into a private room. That time, Joel went crazy looking for me, and in the end, he cut off all contact with his friends, holding me in his arms, trembling. Later, those friends all apologized to me. They thought I was no different from the other women Joel had brought before. That day was also the first time I stepped into Joel's hidden life. But Amelia was different. She liked everything bold, lively, and stimulating. Her life, before she met Joel, fit perfectly with what he had to offer. Another video came through on my phone. Joel was sitting in the main seat, holding Amelia in his arms, swirling his wine glass slowly. Someone joked with him, "Joel, you must be tired of playing with Laura, finally coming back to us." Exactly. This little girlfriend in your arms is way better than Laura. Joel still had a smile on his face, but the next second, the wine glass in his hand was suddenly smashed to the ground. With just one glance, Joel made the faces of everyone in the room change drastically. "Laura is different from these women. She will be my wife, your sister-in-law. Keep your mouths clean," he said. I didn't watch the rest of the video and quickly closed it. Today, I waited from 9 a.m. until 4 p.m. at the Civil Affairs Bureau, but all I got from Joel was a brief message. "Wife, let's wait until after the wedding to get the certificate. I've had to leave for a last-minute business trip." He added a pitiful, pleading emoji. I lifted my sore eyes and looked towards the entrance of the Civil Affairs Hall. Couples and married couples walked past me one after another, and there I was, all alone. I don't know how much time passed, but I replied to him with a simple okay. Then I turned around and started walking back. This life, I had already taken countless steps towards him, and the final step should not be mine to take. Chapter 9. After Joel came back, I noticed that he seemed to have changed. He had become the way he was before Amelia appeared, turning all his attention back to me. So, he noticed the change in my attitude towards him. In the past, whenever he worked late into the night, I would always leave the bedside lamp on until he finished working. But now, more than once, Joel found that when he returned to the bedroom, I was already asleep with my back to him. If it was just this, it wouldn't have been enough to make him worried. But Joel suddenly realized that since he had secretly been with Amelia, I no longer allowed him to touch me. Joel was scared. He was afraid that I would discover this and, more than that I would be disappointed in him completely in the future. So, without consulting me, he dragged me to the Civil Affairs Bureau early the next morning. A few days later, I found myself standing here again, feeling strangely absurd. Joel held my hand, looking at me with hope in his eyes. "We should get the certificate first, and then have the wedding." But this time, I didn't get out of the car. I forgot my ID. "Let's just have the wedding first." Joel paused for a moment, looking hurt, and asked me to go back and get it. I pulled my hand away from his, impatiently saying, "If you say it again, Don't bother with the wedding. Joel didn't dare say another word and quickly drove off. In the following days, I got busier and spoke less and less to Joel. I was busy arranging the wedding process, inviting guests. Seeing that I was still putting my heart into preparing the wedding, Joel gradually relaxed. Amelia also moved out of our house. When she left, the look in her eyes was unfriendly. I guess that Joel must have forced her to leave. Amelia wasn't the type to give up easily. If she couldn't make it with Joel, she would probably come back to find me. Sure enough, on the night she left, Amelia sent me all the chat records and photos from the time she was with Joel. We're together now. If it weren't for his old feelings, he wouldn't even be having a wedding with you, Laura. Whether at home or at Joel's, you're always the one who doesn't belong. Amelia tried to provoke me to stop this wedding that she didn't want to see, but knowing the truth already, I wasn't angry. But this wedding based on old feelings, don't you have none of that? Amelia sneered a few times, her voice full of determination as if she was sure of herself. Just wait. See whether this wedding is yours or mine. Chapter 10. The night before the wedding, my irresponsible father, who hadn't been there for me for over 20 years, showed up. He noticed my unusually good attitude, so much so that I could sense something was off. Amelia's biological mother also came along, and I arranged for both of them to stay in my house. After all, he was my biological father. So that night, Joel took them out to dinner. Throughout the meal, my father didn't mention me once and spent the entire time talking about Amelia's childhood stories. In his lively descriptions, I was reminded of my own miserable childhood, where all I had was a high attic corner, and the sounds of laughter from downstairs. Amelia, the center of the stories, blushed and hid her face in her mother's arms. I quietly lowered my head and continued eating, not participating in their family's happiness. Joel picked up some food and placed it in my bowl, causing the topic to finally change. He casually glanced around the table at everyone. Seems like you've all forgotten. I'm marrying Laura, not the Amelia you keep talking about. After a long silence, my father let out a forced laugh. He wanted to talk about my childhood, but when he opened his mouth, he found himself at a loss for words. I watched him struggle, and a wave of disappointment washed over me. I said to Joel, "I'm done eating. Let's go." As we were about to leave, my father stopped me, a faint hint of apology flashing in his eyes. Finally, after exchanging glances with the woman beside him, he hesitated and spoke. "Laura, I need to talk to you. Can you stay for a moment?" My stepmother quickly chimed in. "Joel, could you please take Amelia? She's going to the movies with her friends." It seemed that Amelia had already told them about her and Joel. She had likely orchestrated this situation, creating an opportunity for her and Joel to be alone together. I nodded at Joel's glance. Without hesitation, Joel took Amelia and left first. Tomorrow's wedding, Amelia was already prepared. Chapter 11. At 3 a.m., the makeup artist knocked on my door, but the door to my bedroom had been locked from the inside. By the time the door was unlocked, Amelia had already prepared everything. She was wearing the wedding dress Joel had specially ordered for me from abroad. It didn't fit properly at the waist, so she used a black clip to hold it in place, making it especially noticeable. Amelia had done her makeup meticulously, looking smug as she confronted me. "You lost today. I'm the bride of this wedding." I wasn't the least bit bothered and gave her a mocking look. Even if I don't wear the wedding dress, the person Joel wants to marry is still me. Amelia wasn't angered by my words. Instead, she seemed to have thought of something and confidently made a bet with me. When the wedding procession arrived, Joel and his entourage saw two brides. Upon seeing Amelia in my wedding dress, Joel's gaze was like a knife, as if it could pierce through her. Amelia staggered a few steps, and tears instantly filled her face. It was then that I noticed. Today Amelia looked paler than usual. She trembled and pulled out a diagnosis slip from somewhere, her eyes full of pleading. "Joel, I'm going to die. My only wish before I die is to have a wedding with you. Can you fulfill that for me?" Joel took the paper in disbelief, carefully reading it. His hands even trembled slightly. Joel was scared. Was he afraid of losing her? I blinked, trying to suppress the bitterness in my heart. Joel held the paper for a long time, and the room was eerily silent. Everyone was waiting for his decision. His groomsmen had a favorable impression of Amelia. One of them spoke up and urged Joel. "Joel, what are you waiting for? Don't you understand the gravity of this situation? Laura, why don't you try to convince him? He can marry you at any time. Amelia is about to die. Don't be so selfish." Chapter 12. As soon as those words left my mouth, the way people looked at me changed. It seemed that if I didn't agree, I would be considered a terrible sinner. No one had ever thought about when my boyfriend, who I had been in a relationship with for years, had started getting entangled with Amelia. Does pretending to be weak and acting pitiful really earn sympathy? Amelia's mother wailed, almost kneeling before me. Of course, as soon as she bent down, someone helped her up. But no matter how much the people around me scolded me, I remained unmoved. I only focused on the man before me and asked, "Joel, who will you choose for this wedding today?" Joel stood there quietly, his lips pressed tightly together, as if making this decision was incredibly difficult for him. Amelia, swaying, finally couldn't hold herself up and collapsed softly. Without thinking, Joel caught her in his arms, his concern evident. He looked up at me, his eyes full of pain, but his words were firm and resolute. "Laura, I gave you my youth and my future, but this time, I want to give the wedding to her." His gaze towards me still held affection. Cheers erupted from the crowd, but I didn't cry or make a scene. I remained composed and indifferent. From the moment Joel saw Amelia, I had already anticipated this outcome. I just suddenly felt a great sadness. The Joel from my past life was completely gone, lost forever. Amelia slowly woke up in Joel's arms, and, while no one was paying attention, she subtly flashed me a smile. I silently clenched the diagnosis slip in my hand, hesitated for a moment, and then handed the wedding over to them. Before leaving, Joel asked me to wait for him. After the wedding, we would go get our marriage certificate. I didn't say anything, just handed the diagnosis slip to Joel. Under Amelia's urging, Joel didn't even look at it, stuffing it into his pocket hastily and rushing into the wedding car. The wedding procession left, and I stood at the door alone, opening the plane ticket I had already booked on my phone. I let out a soft laugh. Amelia had used a fake diagnosis slip to steal Joel's wedding from me, but no one knew that Joel was about to die. Chapter 13. The bride was replaced at the last minute for this wedding. Joel's parents angrily left the wedding scene on the spot. Many others followed them out. The ones who remained were mostly Joel's groomsmen and Amelia's maternal relatives. This time, even those relatives couldn't stand it anymore. They harshly scolded my father. "You treat your own daughter poorly, and favor this stepdaughter with no blood ties. There's no one as foolish as you." My father remained silent, watching as the people from our hometown walked away. As he took a step toward the door, my stepmother grabbed him and pulled him back. "Today is Amelia's big day, so you'd better stay right here and behave." The small shred of dignity that had ignited earlier was immediately extinguished, and my father lowered his head again. Although the attendance at their wedding was small, it was spread all over the internet by Amelia's maternal family. When I got off the plane, I saw the wedding scene. It was grand, joyful, and the exchange of rings was particularly heartwarming. It was the wedding Joel had been looking forward to. I thought, even though the bride had changed, his wish must have been fulfilled. Chapter 14. After I left, I blocked all contact with Joel, so I had no idea he searched the entire city for me. When I got off the plane, I threw myself into work. In the past, I had stayed in the country to be with Joel. My best friend had asked me many times to go abroad to help manage her company's business. When she heard about my situation with Joel, she sighed for a long time. I've always thought that everyone might part ways, but I never thought that one day, you two wouldn't be able to make it. Men, they're all the same. I didn't respond. After the wedding, Joel rushed back to find me, but my neighbor told him I had already left. Joel's eyes instantly reddened. He couldn't believe I would actually leave him. The moment he chose Amelia, he was certain I still had lingering feelings for him, that I wouldn't bear to hurt him. But now, Joel no longer had the confidence that I still loved him. Joel hurried to our new home. He arrived just in time to see my aunt carrying my things out of the house. With trembling hands, Joel opened the boxes, and they were all filled with my personal belongings. His suspicions were confirmed, and he stood there like a fool, frozen in place. The aunt, having heard about Joel's actions, felt sympathy for my situation and showed no kindness toward him. She threw the envelope I had left for Joel at him, grabbed the boxes, and was about to leave. Joel stopped her. "Don't throw those away. Those are Lara's things." The aunt turned around with a neutral expression. "You don't want the person, so why keep these things? Are you going to let them mold?" Chapter 15. After the aunt left, Joel suddenly burst out laughing. He didn't know what he had done today. He didn't understand how he ended up choosing Amelia as his bride so foolishly. But at this moment, everything suddenly became clear in Joel's muddled mind. The delayed pain of losing Lara pierced through his heart. After a while, Joel finally realized that I had left him a letter. He bent down and carefully picked up the envelope. Simply opening the letter took a great deal of effort from Joel. The content was brief. Only a few lines of text. "Joel, I once saw a person in a dream who looked just like you. We once loved each other deeply. But in the end, I married someone else. And he died. I thought we could make up for the regrets of what we missed in the dream. But I was wrong. You're not him. And you can never be him. The one I've always loved was the Joel in my dream. Take care of yourself. And don't give up." Tears fell from Joel's eyes, large and heavy, as he pressed his hand to his chest, unable to straighten up. Countless shattered fragments filled his mind, and scenes flashed quickly before his eyes. Joel took a deep breath, then collapsed to the floor, unconscious. Chapter 16. When Joel woke up, he was in the hospital, his parents in the hallway wiping their tears. Joel stared blankly out the window, as if he had returned to the moment of his past life. But this time, the person getting married was him. Joel took out the diagnosis slip Lara had given him and saw the date on it. It was the day he went to the hospital to pick her up. He still remembered that Lara had asked him that day, "What was your biggest wish in this life?" How did he answer her back then? Joel smiled. He laughed at himself for being a fool. Lara had been steadily moving toward him, step by step, but he had taken steps backward. And he had been with someone like Amelia, doing whatever he wanted. He thought, before he died, he no longer had the right to say he loved her. Joel gave up on treatment, calmly waiting for the day death would come. His parents took turns crying and trying to persuade him, but Joel remained unmoved. When Amelia heard that Joel was dying, she showed up with a group of people, demanding her share of his inheritance. "We, Amelia, have held a wedding with your son, so we should get half of Joel's fortune." Joel's parents had lived dignified lives, and they had never encountered such a shameless scoundrel. For a moment, they couldn't find a single word to say. Joel opened the door and stepped out, and the hallway instantly became quiet. He looked at Amelia, his voice hoarse. "You're not sick." Amelia hesitated at first, then remembered that Joel was about to die. What was there to be afraid of? She placed her hands on her hips and stood proudly. "So what? You gave up on Lara and chose me. Can you blame me for that?" Chapter 17. Joel nodded and murmured softly, "Yes, it's my fault. All my fault." Amelia thought she had persuaded Joel and demanded a large sum of money. Joel agreed, promising to give it to her in 3 days. But the next day, Amelia's ex-boyfriend came to find her. Amelia had transferred all her ex-boyfriend's savings, telling him she was coming to me to get away from everything. But in truth, she was running away. The money was meant for her ex-boyfriend's family to survive, and it was incredibly important. In the end, during a struggle with Amelia, the man, in his fury, stabbed her. Amelia lost too much blood and fell into a coma. Her situation critical. Joel, just like in his past life, continued to write me love letters every day. But those letters never reached my hands, because Joel knew he no longer had the right to send them. Before his death, he burned those letters with his own hands. When he opened the envelope, inside was no longer the beautiful, unforgettable memories we once shared. There were only useless apologies. "Lara, I'm sorry." Chapter 18. The day Joel died. I took a day off from work. After much hesitation, I finally opened that familiar profile and unblocked him. His profile picture was already blacked out. My body trembled for a moment, and this feeling left my mind chaotic and empty. I silently sat by the window. I didn't know what I was waiting for, but I couldn't bring myself to look away even for a second. I waited from the first light of dawn until it was dark, only to return to disappointment again and again from countless messages. The chat page between Joel and me remained completely silent. I don't know why, but at that moment, I suddenly felt like crying, and I did. I knew Joel would never contact me again. In the face of life and death, it seemed that all the love and hate didn't matter as much anymore. Joel and I loved each other for 2 lifetimes, and beyond love, the familial bond was just as deep. In the early morning, I received the news of Joel's death. No contact, no goodbyes, not even a single word left for me. The last time we saw each other before parting was just that day when he was holding Amelia and got into the wedding car. The day Joel left, I didn't go back. 1,000 miles apart. No contact. Perhaps that's the best ending for us. Joel, I will live well and forget you. I hope, for your sake, that you won't come looking for me again.